Hello, everyone, and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name is David Edgar, and I am your host back this week after an unexpected week off last week. So, my thanks to Cammy for sitting in for me and joining me this week after Rangers recorded a quite routine, but a pleasantly routine 3-0 victory against Dundee is David Graham. Hi, David.
Davey, good afternoon, evening, listeners. As we spoke about off air, uh, I recorded the flagship with Kami last week, but it didn't record. So the greatest ever Heart and Hand episode that never was. So glad to be on this week, and we've double checked that this is recording. So let's get to work.
Yes, let's hope that the listeners get to hear this one. But Rangers went up to Dundee, and I think after the performance against Roma on Thursday night, which was really disappointing, David. Not that we lost to Roma; they're a very good side. They're second in Serie A, legitimate shout of winning it this year. They are a good team. They'll be a Champions League side next year. Great manager in Gasperini as well. But we didn't lay a glove on them, in all honesty, and that I think was the worst thing because there was such a gulf that they were quite clearly not out of second gear, didn't need to be, and they were so comfortable. And then with that typical Italian efficiency at 2-0, they went, right, okay, we'll just kind of conserve energy. We've got a league game at the weekend. Whereas an English team would maybe go and try and get you 6 and 7. They don't, thankfully, Italians. They just go, 2-0's fine. And we were just a miles off it. And I think it really brought home how far this season we've slid from previous. I mean, even in poor domestic years, as we've witnessed, we were able in these nights to come up with something against bigger, better teams. Now, we lost to Leon last year. There is no disgrace in going down to a side that the players are signing are out of our league. I get that, but you want to go down swinging, and we didn't.
No, you're right. It wasn't the result. I think had we all been told before the game this will be the result, we'd have kind of shrugged our shoulders and said, "Well, yeah, that's to be expected." I think it was the manner of the result or the manner of the game itself. Didn't even get anywhere close. It was a bit too routine. It was almost like watching a kind of a training game in many ways. And I think you're right. It highlighted, and I think it focused on the drop in standards, or even the drop in quality, I suppose, of in terms of the squad. Ali was scathing about some of the recruitment after the game, and it certainly did bring in the sharp focus. A lot of the problems, which quite frankly we have brought on ourselves this season through poor planning, poor recruitment, and the poor choice of manager. So, in many ways, it's kind of epitomised the worst of Rangers this season. I don't want to then flick us on to yesterday at Dens Park, say it was the best of Rangers, because fundamentally it is a routine win because it should be a routine win and a clean sheet. And I think it's almost one of those games where you almost are going back down the road saying, right, 3 points, let's never think or discuss this game again. So in a way, 3 points and we move on. But one thing I would say, and I know we'll get into the nuts and bolts in a moment, but I think it's always good to go into an international break on the back of a win, because it does fester and it can linger for a fortnight, basically, if you finish on a negative position before that. What is almost a mid-season break, if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, that it kind of feels that way, and it is a long time, 2 weeks to fester after a bad result. So it was important that we got back on the board yesterday. And let's start with a positive, Dave, because we've been miserable and moaning all season, and deservedly so. We've had every right to. But Mikey Mo came up here, big rep, or rather big potential. But big things are expected of him at Tottenham. He is a player that they really, really rate, and not just within Tottenham. Within English football, he's seen as somebody that's going to be there for a number of years and be a quality player. And he's starting to show it under Danny Rule. And I think a big part of it is the boy is not a touchline winger. Let him roam, which he has done within a disciplined system, and we're starting to see the best of him.
Well, yeah, I think as well, and look, you can discuss, various players who have came on loan and their sort of success stories, and I suppose the opposite of success stories. And really, when you consider Tierney and Sema, being, I think, actually player of the year and young player of the year last year. Does that spring to mind? Am I right in saying that? Uh,
Yeah, Sema started slowly. So did Cherny. I mean,
yeah,
look, let's not rewrite history.
no,
After that Leon game again, Cherny, we would all have happily sent him home.
that's
And
right. That's
people
right.
people were saying that they wouldn't are fibbers. We were all
Yeah,
saying this guy's a bit of a dud. And then he got two against St Johnstone and was clearly still raging with how he's been playing. And I think we
yeah,
all went, right, okay. Sema was the same the first few games. I remember we're all going, Jesus, this boy's touch is
yeah,
miles off.
yeah.
And in the case of Moore, he just didn't really look up to much at
No, and
all.
I think you're right though. I think that's really the point that I'm trying to make is that when a player comes in on loan, especially when they come from the like of a Tottenham, you think, right, this kid has to be great, and he has to hit the ground running. And he's played for Tottenham first team, so he's going to do all these great things. But actually, in reality, you have to take a step back and say there's a reason why he's being sent on loan to us, and that's
100%.
because he needs to be given. Put in a difficult environment where he can make mistakes. Where even though us as Rangers fans say, the classic, you're not judging your last game, you're judging your last pass, and all the various cliches. But in reality, Mikey Moore's been positioned at Rangers because he will go back, I presume, and have a pre-season at Spurs. And in all reality, we might make a wee fight to try to get him again next season, or he'll end up perhaps going to a lower end
English club,
Premier
yeah. I
Premier
think
League club or
that's the
top end of
plan
the
for him.
Championship. So,
Yeah, I
so
think the
we,
plan next year is lower end of the Premiership. I think for him, but the boy has ability, right? And like I say, and by the way, listeners, don't fall in love with this loan player because he was 20 million rated before he arrived here. If he has a good loan season, forget
yeah,
it. Plus, Tottenham don't want to sell him.
yeah,
Which is
yeah.
full stop. They really think he's one for the future.
Yeah, he's
But
different than a Ryan Kent in that
yeah,
vein, Davey.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
he is one that they have earmarked for the future. But the thing
yes.
about him is that he's clearly a very talented player, and you're right, he has struggled. But equally, he was like all of them, sort of set up to fail under the previous manager, who just quite clearly was clueless and got worse as the season went on. And now that the manager has sat down and looked at it, and I think one of the things we're noticing about Danny Rule, I'm certainly thinking is he's very pragmatic. Like he hasn't arrived in and went, right, I'm going to put my style of play on the team because Davey, he came in and he went, look, this boat is sinking. So the
Hmm.
first thing I need to do before I think about the paint job I want to put on it is repair all the holes. And that's what he's been trying to do. And he's looked at the squad, and some games he's went with a 3. Yesterday he went with a 4. He's just trying to get the ship sailing at the moment. And he's looked at Mikey Moore and went, right, you're never a winger in a million years. You're a number 10. So let's put you in a position where you can go and be a number 10.
Hmm. And I think as well, though, I mean, going right the way back to when the previous manager was sacked, and I remember saying, look, whoever the new manager in needs to come in, needs to firstly get a win at home, of which Danny Rule has done. Secondly, get a clean sheet, which we did yesterday. Obviously, the big kind of, I suppose, blot in his copybook was last weekend at Hampden, which look is in the past, and obviously it's there's a number of games before we go to Parkhead, and we'll discuss that in due course. But he is making baby steps, small steps, but they are steps in the right direction, and I think what I would say is that you can at least see, right, there's something here with a poor squad, which has been probably in many ways, bizarrely weakened by the recent recruitment. But there's at least something here in this manager that he's going to be pragmatic and he's going to take it game at a time. Because I think, and I said this, the next game's the biggest game for the rest of the season because there's no point looking to see how many points we are behind Hearts and them and other clubs one game at a time and see where things go and look for more positive. So look, yes, it was a positive, wasn't it? There's many areas that we need to work on. There's many areas of dare I say concern, but a win's a win, and we move swiftly on. Really,
Yeah, exactly. So Rangers went into the game, as I say, changing formation. We went to a 4 with the manager moving away from the 3 that had worked, as he said. He's still looking. I think there's been honesty about that, David. He's still looking for what's the best team, what's the best system for this team, and he's not somebody that's got a fixed idea. It has to be this or it has to be that. And he went in, as I say, yesterday with the 4. And in the first half, Rangers were very good. Dundee has been tricky for us away, tricky for Celtic as well. they can rise to the occasion in these matches. And one thing that we've let them do a lot recently is get off to a very fast start. I think last season we conceded in the first 5 minutes both times at Dundee. And Jack Butland's made a save from a free kick early doors. But after that, Rangers have grabbed it. And on the front foot, aggressive. We're making sure that when Dundee had the ball, we were going in and taking it off them and springing. And it does help when you get a goal early on, which we do. It fast becoming Nico Raskin's trademark goal. The the thing about this is, right, and we don't often look at opposition teams, which is probably unfair because, they're a big part of the game and we don't always give them a lot of agency in it. But there's always a debate among football fans about should you go zonal or man to man, right? When the truth is, just about every team, I was going to say every team, but you'll hear why in a second I didn't. Just about every team has a mixture of zonal and man marking. The idea is that you'll have people in the positions, zones to head away, and then you've got guys whose job it is to go and head the ball, guys whose job it is to be blockers, all the stuff, right? Dundee, though, fair play to them, they were totally zonal. And in that, they literally let Raskin and a few others just run at the ball and have headers, despite being punished early on. They then let it happen again in the second half. That was bizarre.
But yeah, I think we have spoken about this before, Davey, where Nico Raskin, for the fact is, he probably is the shortest member in our squad. I'm trying to think of someone like he's definitely on he's certainly on the lower end of the height scale. He's incredibly effective in the air, and that's not the first flick on style header he scored this season. It is a little bit of a thing where you do judge the book by its cover and say, all right, well, sir, he's 5'2", he can't be any good in the air. There's that lad at 6'7" who couldn't head the ball for love nor money. So he that is one of his deceptive strengths, and it's, as you say, really important to score so early, especially after, to be fair, Butland save, which like was a cracking strike, and it was equally as cracking a save.
Mm. Yeah, no, it was a very good strike. I mean, you're wanting your keeper saving it, don't get me wrong, but even so, it still was a good
Yeah,
save. But yeah, and the thing about Raskin is it's timing. You get the delivery right. Like I watch Arsenal, and everybody talks about their set pieces. A big part of it's the delivery.
yeah,
They've got Declan Rice, they've got Bukayo Saka. It was a great ball in by Tab, but Raskin he times his runs really well and he knows where to be and he times his leaps well. And I remember, although we don't like to mention him, Naismith was a wee guy, but he was very good in the air as well for the same reason that it's not so much about just being the tallest, it's about timing it, arriving at the
yeah.
exact right moment and using your intelligence in the box to find the space.
Yeah, and I think that was why their goal last Sunday from the corner at Hampden was so frustrating because the wee lads jumped up like a salmon and seemed to have picked a header
There
out
was
when there's like
four round
four,
him, eye,
four
and none
blue
of them
shirts
dealt with it.
around him, and you're
Yeah.
thinking bloody but ultimately I'm sounding like an underrated coach here, but if you don't get yourself in the air, it doesn't matter how tall you are, and I think that was what was wrong last Sunday, where literally our boys were concreted to the floor. So yeah, look, good, really good start, and I think you're right to say the delivery. It's not a goal without a good delivery. That's a fact.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then Rangers, for once, decided, hey, we're in top here, let's go and capitalise on it. And did so with Mikey Mo. Lovely goal, this. And it was just so clever. And he gets into the position for the shot. He's driving at them again, which I like. He's been doing it a lot. Space opens up. He absolutely does the keeper with the eyes, doesn't he? He
Yeah.
shapes to hit it, and it does look as though he's going to hit it into the far corner, and then he just turns his body and whips it round into the near post. Cracking finish, but really intelligent finish as well.
You actually when you watch it back the first time, it's absolutely stumped the keeper, hasn't it? It's just a really intelligent finish. It's actually a goal where when you watch it in real time, I couldn't actually believe it looks so easy, but actually when you break it down, it actually shows what a quality player he is. So, and especially too, like Davey, I can't remember, listeners, I can't remember the last time where we scored early, then we basically went after a team to try to score again. Certainly wasn't this season. And that was the really pleasing thing, because it's a cliche, but the second goal is the most important, especially away from home.
Yeah, as in 2-0 does change it because then they have to come out and they have to play. And Rangers were very much on top during this period. Now, it would be remiss to say, though, that if there was, and the manager was open about this afterwards, David, he wasn't trying to kid people on about the level of performance. He wasn't saying it was perfect because it wasn't. It wasn't there. It was good in the first half, but there were still things wrong. And a big problem that we have is at centre forward. Yesterday, all three of them got 45 minutes and none of them impressed. And there were bits here and there. Danilo, some of his movement was good. There was a layoff in the first half from Miovski. There was a nice pass from Chermiti in the second half, but it's not adding up to a whole. And without a functioning centre forward, a lot of moves break down because the important thing in that kind of system is they need to be a pivot. They need to hold the ball and release it, and they're not doing it enough. That's isolated moments, as just mentioned there.
Well, look, I don't know how long we're into this podcast. Right, we're in 15, just about to be in 16 minutes. And I've held off having any great scathing criticism of our equipment until now. But I think now is the moment. I mean, if we are honest, okay, and I'll address your very valid point, Davy, about centre forward in a second. Obviously, Moore was our man of the match, yes, in my view. But I think bar Gassama, there's no one else that really jumped out to me from the new set of players, for players that were signed this summer, who you could genuinely say were an upgrade on who would have started this time last year. And I think it is most accentuated at centre half. And look, I mean, I watched the game in Sky yesterday. I don't
Centre
know if anyone
forward, you
else.
mean? Although I would agree
Sorry,
with centre half, but centre
sorry.
forward.
Yes, yes, a Freudian slip. But you realise what I was thinking there. Sorry. I do think that at one stage it was very frustrating because Sky Sports put up this sort of infograph, which was, Cyril Dessers having scored X amount of goals last season compared to, other players, etc.,
Yes,
etc. And look, that
the three players that listed were Dessers, Igaman, and Tierney, and it came to 67
yeah,
goals.
yeah. Now, look, you could argue that that's deliberate in terms of, kind of trying to set a narrative, and it probably is, but it's very difficult to argue against fact. And I mean, if you think about it, I mean, we can get into, well, not rewrite history. I mean, Cyril Dessers may have scored, almost 30 goals last year. He missed a hell of a lot more. But then, as Ali McCoy says himself, I scored 355 goals for Rangers and I missed a hell of a lot more as well. So, look, there's no point turning back and saying, oh, Dessers was this and Dessers was that. He was incredibly frustrating. And I think it was probably the right move that he moved on. But, I mean, it's another week and we're having this discussion around Chermiti especially, who obviously come on. The fact that he doesn't start is a concern in itself. The fact when he comes on, dare I say, you could argue he is consistently our worst player or most concerning player. And look, the boy might come good, as I think I said last week on the podcast. Um, if he was alone, Davy, we would maybe afford him a bit more, cut him a bit more slack. But given he is our second most expensive ever signing, like we need to be getting a lot more out of him, and that's before the fact of Majowski overall has been.
I think Miovski's been worse,
Exactly,
and
you've
it's a
taken the
low
words out of my
bar.
mouth. He has been more of a disappointment because I think we expected more from him.
Yeah.
In that, I kind of feel a bit sorry for Tremidi in a way because the whole support has been, who the hell's this guy and why the hell have we paid this amount of money? But with
Mm.
Majowski, maybe because he kind of almost single handedly finished Connor Goldson's Rangers career one night at was it Ibrox or
That was
Pataudi? I can't
Ibrox,
remember.
aye.
Ibrox. But we probably all had in our head the classic. He knows the league. If he can do it at Aberdeen, he can do it for us. And he hasn't broken any delf whatsoever, and that's before we get to Danilo, who was 6 million as well. So let's not get carried away that we got him for nothing. So it's a major concern, and if we're going to change it, it's going to cost us a lot of money. That's the
Mm.
way we look at it now.
Yeah, definitely. I think with Miovski, you can have the debate about whether or not we're the right. And I know that there were some people saying, that type of striker doesn't suit us, though. He's good at getting into space, all this kind of stuff. And they're right, but he's not this bad. We have seen this from him before. We've seen better than this. That's maybe not to say he's going to be the answer for us, but he's better than this. and that's the frustrating thing at the moment. But then, of course, the obligatory refereeing controversy. Rangers have the ball in the net. Another great finish by Mikey Mo after a stramash from a corner. Initially wondered if he's offside or not. And after a lengthy delay, the referee is invited to go and look at the screen for a subjective offside. And it's from the initial shot from Danilo, which goes through the legs of Mo Diamande. Keeper saves it, and Moore puts in the rebound. Moore's offside. Diamante is offside. There's no doubt about it. It's whether or not he's interfering with play. And this is split opinion. So I'm not going to say that every Rangers fan, I was raging yesterday because for me, it's he saves it. Clearly he sees it. In the heat of the moment afterwards, and then maybe, after there was a similar incident in Manchester City versus Liverpool, he definitely is in front of. I think the keeper can still see it, to be honest. Hence why he gets to it. Had Danilo's shot gone in and they ruled it offside, I wouldn't have had a problem with it. But with this one, I'm like, well, he did save it, but apparently, according to referees about the Man City Liverpool one, that if you're in the box offside in a situation like this at a corner, and they're just going to give it now, which I must admit I hadn't been aware of, because they seem to change the interpretation of these rules all the time. Yeah, very frustrating because
Well,
it would have ended the game.
I think it was not only very frustrating, I think it was the length of time. So I think when the decision was eventually finalised, confirmed that it was no goal, the first thing I said to my mate I was watching the game with, I said, well, okay, why did it take that long? And that's the real frustrating part. And I know you can say, right, we're Rangers fans, so you're going to say that's frustrating because we didn't get a goal. But it's actually a fact of it takes so long, and at the end of it, I think it's the wrong decision. And that's the thing that really annoys me, where like I was watching Linfield Saturday night, real time, second yellow card for, a high foot guy goes down holding his head, probably genuinely about 3 feet from his head, and the ref bought the second yellow. Obviously, VAR is great because you can watch that back and say, right, wrong decision. But this today, we're talking about a decision, and I genuinely don't even know if it was the right or wrong decision, because you're right. The, the rules seem to change almost every month at the minute, and I genuinely can't keep up.
Yeah, no, and the interpretation seemed to change a lot, and I suppose we're quick to be critical. I suppose it's difficult to for referees as well, who often look as though they struggle up here to understand the basic rules, never mind these new and more convoluted ones. But in at half time, 2-0 up, playing well. Manager makes 3 changes at half time, and he spoke afterwards about wanting a bit more energy into the side because he felt that we might, after Thursday in the game, that he might kind of slack off a bit. Now, he said a really interesting thing, Dave, which was he said in the second half, because it just felt that we completely fell off and sat back quite happy with it. I mean, I wondered for a while if they thought that third goal had counted, the way they were playing. But he said that, yeah, in the second half, instead of pressing them up and down, we started just shuffling side to side. And by that, what he meant was Dundee were passing the ball about, their version of a horseshoe, trying to get in behind us. And the players weren't going and trying to win the ball. They were going across and blocking the space, and they were working, and he doesn't want to see that so much. Now, it's a kind of double-edged sword because we do clearly have a better shape under rule already, right? And the players at 2-0 up were sitting in it and saying to Dundee, right, okay, there's not going to be any space. We're not opening up space for you to go and find. And Dundee didn't. But it was a bit frustrating as a fan and clearly as a manager, because there were more goals in that game for Rangers had we gone for it, and we didn't really, and it was a bit frustrating. Equally, having watched the game back, I don't think we were under any serious bother, but it just takes one, and I think kill it and then do that, then sit in your shape and conserve energy. But I thought we did it a bit early.
Yeah, I think that's right, because ultimately, look, it's a pretty obvious thing, but if 2-0 becomes 2-1, it starts to get squeaky bum time. And I think I was so effusive in my praise there 5 minutes ago because I was saying, look, getting that second goal, foot on the throat, genuinely cannot remember the last time we approached a game like that. And I think then it probably did become frustrating because we did drop our intensity. And I think, like, if I'm honest, and I know I'm kind of going back to this sort of like broken record about the recruitment, but I think it's because we seem to have brought players in who, for whatever reason, whether it's the clubs or the level they're coming at, or coming from, I should say, they're just not bringing the intensity that I feel A, we require, and B, even in early stages, that Danny Rule seems to want.
Yeah, I think Asgard's a good example of that. That
Exactly.
he's kind of walking about looking a bit shell shocked, really. I don't whether it's the pace or whatever, and he's wanting too much time in the ball, and he's going to have to get over that quickly. And you see in the case of someone like Moore, somebody who's learned that pretty quickly, and has speeded up his game. Asgard's definitely going to have to, because I think you saw yesterday a lot of moves broke down when it went to him. And then we got a little scrappy in our passing, there's no doubt about that. And we stopped being as much of a threat. And it was frustrating because in the rare times when we did venture forward, David, we were making chances. So there were goals there for us, I felt.
Yeah, and I suppose I just feel there is no one who, again, I'm repeating myself. We've never replaced Stephen Davis. Now, obviously, I am going to say that, given I'm from Northern Ireland, but we, you know, we don't have, and listeners, please don't come down my throat for saying this, but we probably, one of the things that I feel the other side of the city have over us is a player like Callum McGregor, who is able to drive a team forward, is able to provide that leadership. When he sort of, it seems to be when he ticks, their team seems to tick. I just don't really feel we have anyone like that is able to keep control of a game like that yesterday. And again, listen, we've major issues up front, major issues in defence, but I just don't think we've got that kind of ball player, technical playmaker that is able to keep the ball moving. And I think probably you're right. Asgard was probably meant to be that guy, but he just seems to be so pedestrian in many ways.
Yeah, that's the word. And it's like, you can see he's got something about him. And with the physicality he has, he should be doing better than this. But it's like, no, you're not going to get time. They are going to jump on you, so you need to be thinking quicker than you are. And he was dispossessed a lot. One thing that did concern me yesterday was their fullback went by Tav about 5 times in the second half, just like he wasn't there. And okay, we got away with it. And I thought, the much maligned and deservedly so after the last few weeks, but John Souttar was good yesterday. He dealt with everything that came in, but against a better side, a fullback that he just doesn't have the legs to get back, and the guy twigged that and just kept knocking it by him and running, and Tav couldn't get to him.
Well, look, I think our difficulty is, and I was effusive in my praise of Tav after last Sunday. The concern I have with Suter, and looking at Suter's contract situation, etc. My concern is that you're right, much maligned, and I know that there are even some members of the podding team who have some potters who have less time for John Suter than others. We just, I think, need to be careful that if Suter was to move on, that we are able to bring in a player who is an improvement on him. And I'm just kind of putting that out there because I think he had a good game yesterday. I think that's probably the sort of game that suits him.
Yeah,
And
but he too many brain farts.
yeah. Oh, listen, look. All I've got to say, Dave, is like I remember when John Suter was playing at Hearts, and obviously, like we were obviously having a look at him, but like there was an argument to say that he could, go down south, even top end of the championship, whatever the case may be. He was regular in the Scotland team, etc. But there are then moments, the same as Jack Butland, where you almost go, ah, right, I see
Mm-hmm.
why he's with us, and that sounds disrespectful to us as a club or the level we're at. But Jack Butland's not a regular in the Premier League, Premiership, because yes, he makes some, dare I say, world class saves like he did last Sunday, in particular. But then he'll also do things that you know let the ball slip, and I think that's the same for Suter at centre half. There's a player in there, there's a decent player in there, but yeah, there's probably just too many mistakes.
Yeah, that's the thing, and he's one of these unlucky players that whenever he makes a mistake, it's a goal, um, which is unfortunate for a centre half, but it does seem to be the reality. Got the third eventually, last minute. And the thing that impressed me about this is a very good goal from the point of view of Gassama. He deserves a lot of credit, all the credit, nearly, because lovely turns inside, shot into the far corner. He's got that in his locker. The manager spoke about wanting to see him do it more. Brilliant goal. But the run by Magoma to create the space was superb. And Danny Rule pointed this out afterwards. He said, 90th minute, he's up, he's surging there, he takes away the defender, that lets Gassama cut in. That is the kind of thing you want to see for your players. And something that has been labelled at the players or levelled at the players. And as I say, with cause this season, but there he was charging away. It's just the confidence, I suppose. You're 2-0 up, you're winning the game, you've repelled everything that's come at you, you're on for another clean sheet. These are all important milestones because they build momentum. And does he do that if it's one each and we're chasing? Well, he probably hasn't the space to do it, but you know what I mean? It was just something that was great to see. And even though he's not touched the ball, he's played a big part in that goal.
Yeah, look, I think, look, on the two players you mentioned, so Makoma, there maybe is something there. Maybe he will be.
Attacking wise, there is, I
Yeah.
think, definitely.
Again, do we have the patience to kind of put up with his flaws? Well, no, we probably don't. But I think on Gassama as well, is it fair to say he's been our best signing this
But
summer?
yeah, I mean, low bar, but yes.
Low bar, yeah, exactly. He can tie his own shoelaces, so therefore, he gets the start. But I mean, look, I think again there's a player there, and I think that he is the sort of player that will probably improve for us as he kind of gets to know the league and probably realizes that going away to Livingston and Dundee is very different than going away to, I don't know, Bristol City or something like that. It's almost like a different sport at times. I mean, some of the football that we play at the lower end of the Premiership, really the ball should be oval at times rather than round. But
Yeah.
there's something there, and I think, look, maybe I think it was a bit of sort of general hearsay, but it was Andy Halliday, I think, that said like Gassama was the only player to kind of come out positively from Hart's recruitment program thingy, Jamestown, isn't it? Again, look, that might be not everything you hear in open goal is not true, but look, again, I think there's something there is positive, and there are a number of players that I have significant concerns over, and Gassama's probably not one of them. Or the fact those under short cycling things are far
Yeah.
too long, but that's
Well, this is the thing. One player starts wearing them, it's like the fucking holes in the back of socks, or further back, Vaseline on the shirt, or even remember back to the 90s with the stupid nose plaster that
Oh, do you mean, yeah, did
any
Andy
effect at all.
Halliday, speak of the devil, Andy Halliday still wears one?
It's the holes in the socks drive me nuts. It's like, oh, it gives me more air in my calves. No, fuck off, right?
Yeah.
It's nonsense. You saw someone doing it on the telly, and now you're all doing it. It's the fashion, and this clearly is going to be the next one. They're all going to be running about looking like Andy McGowan in his long johns.
Let's not get off topic, but the worst of all the trends, and I remember Jimmy Bale, God rest him, being unable to get his head around this at all, was when Alfredo Morelos used to wear short sleeves and gloves.
Gloves, yeah.
Let's not even go there. That's a podcast in itself.
Right then, folks, that will do us for this week here on Heart and Hand. Back next week with our usual International Week Q&A. My thanks to our executive producers, Mike Lee and Paul Miles, and my thanks to David.
Yep, pleasure as always, Davey. Thank you, and enjoy
nice
your
to have you on after
international
a
break.
win.
Yes, it's a very strange. I don't know if if it'll ever catch on, but hopefully I get to be on this season again after a win.
Yeah,
You never know.
I've done a lot of research into this, and I definitely think that it's better when Rangers win than when they don't.
Yes,
That's my scientific take.
For everyone concerned. There
For
might even
everyone
be a
concerned.
book in that.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
Right. Thanks for joining us,
pleasure as
folks.
always. Cheers,
And
guys.
we'll be back next week. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.